Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Thank you for tuning in. So as we wait to see what will happen to Foodie Beauty and where in the world she will turn up when we see her next, I wanted to talk about what fueled the catnapping to begin with. Now, yes, it was predominantly about money. However, I think there was another element that contributed to the whole situation. And another thing I want to talk about is why they were so ill-prepared for this little baby when they have a cat at home. And I'll get into more details about that in a bit. So let's get to it. Now, many have described the look that Foodie Beauty had during the whole catnapping as manic or frenzied, even deranged. And I would agree. Foodie Beauty had a completely different look on her face and in her eyes during this whole situation. And it started before they even saw any of the cats. It started when they were sitting there eating their fried chicken. Foodie had this smugness about her, a look of almost defiance, even though there was nothing to defy before it all started, as well as a dismissiveness. And while the notion is that that may be because this was all pre-planned, I think, yes, it may have been, it likely was, but the question is why? And even if it wasn't pre-planned, what was this all about? In the days leading up to the catnap, there had been people coming into Foodie Beauty's chat and asking about BBJ. And they had been bringing up or inquiring about why she is referred to as an animal cabooser, if you get my drift. And she proceeded to offer her latest version of events regarding BBJ. And then, as she always does, she told that person, who sounds like they may have been a new viewer, not to listen to any of the reactor channels, to dismiss whatever reactor channels have to say about the BBJ situation. And then, of course, there were others in her chat who were chiming in to say that FFG had made so much money after she took BBJ. And Foodie Beauty was getting upset about that. And of course, then accused everybody about not truly caring about BBJ. This all happened in the days before the catnapping. Now, Foodie might like us to believe that she just lets comments like that roll off of her. But that's not the case. I think either consciously or subconsciously, Foodie fixated on all of those comments and on the whole situation. She fixated on the fact that BBJ was rescued. She also fixated on the fact that the community was willing to donate funds in order to help and support BBJ's rescue, or even as a thank you. So in Foodie Beauty's mind, she wanted to replicate the BBJ rescue with another cat. She also wanted to benefit financially from that very same rescue. So this whole thing was an attempt by Foodie Beauty to execute a BBJ rescue of her own, so to speak. When she saw that first $50 donation come in, you could see her eyes light up. You could see her trying to convince Salah and flat out saying that, oh, they said they will help us. She was giving him the signal in those moments that this was going to be a lucrative operation for them. When that first donation came in, we can see their criminal plan unfold right before our eyes. It was almost like a blueprint for their crime being drafted in real time. The fact that she wanted this to be her own version of a BBJ rescue also to a certain extent explains why she was so upset when she found out that the cat was a male. That was not a standard reaction. If you're going to help a cat, you are going to help a cat, no matter what the gender is. But it seemed that part of Foodie Beauty's hope or dream had been dashed when she found out that he was a boy. Now, when they were in the car, somebody made a $100 contribution. And of course, Foodie Beauty got very excited about this and proceeded to tell Salah. Salah's response was, oh, thank you so much. Is this like for the cat? And you could see him getting more and more on board with the whole situation as those funds were coming in. Prior to that, he had expressed that he was confused about the situation because of the various comments that he was receiving from the people in the chat. Now, in order to be perceived as a cat rescuer of a cat in poor condition, Foodie Beauty amplified the various ailments that she perceived the cat to have. First of all, upon finding him, she claimed that his ears were full of ear mites, and she said this twice, almost like she doubled down on this. However, when they took him to the garage vet, he made no mention of the cat's ears. He did not prescribe anything for mites. There was no mention. She asked Salah, what did he say about his ears? And Salah said pretty much nothing. Like there was no concern about the cat's ears. I think that that was very interesting that immediately Foodie Beauty had concluded that the cat had mites in his ears, only for that not to be the case. And of course, we know the rest. The cat was dying on death's door. It had all of these infections and so on and so forth. What I think she was doing there is that she was trying to mirror the BBJ situation. We all know the poor condition in which BBJ was when she was rescued. She had various ailments due to Foodie Beauty's neglect. So Foodie Beauty was trying to flip that around and make everybody believe that here she was rescuing this sickly, sickly baby who was on death's door, when that was not the case at all. And this has all also been confirmed by Paws Kuwait. The cat was stable. Now, when they got to the pet store, there are certain things that they did fairly well and other things which raised questions. So, for example, they were looking for age-appropriate food. That's great. I'm glad they did. That's what they're supposed to do. And then they got him a litter box, and that is great also. But when they were trying to get contents for the litter box, Foodie Beauty said that they had to get some because they didn't have any sand at home. Let's have a listen to this exchange.
Okay, the blue one.
Oh, cute. And litter when you litter.
There's mouse also, toy.
So cute. Oh my goodness.
And this one is cooking.
Okay.
We have the sand already.
No, we don't have sand.
Sand?
No, we don't.
Okay, we'll buy a new one.
Make sure it's hypoallergenic. Wait. No, never mind. What cat litter should we get?
I always get this one. Different time.
Okay.
It's good quality.
She specifically says, no, we don't have sand at home. And then they proceed to get what is considered or what they've been told is high quality litter. Why is this important? Well, we know that Julia has been having issues with not using her litter box. And now we hear that they don't have sand at home. Is that because they just happened to run out? Or have they been neglectful of her box, which would then make sense as to why Julia is going around the apartment? Editing me here, and I just want to also point out that Foodie has absolutely no idea what brand they get for Julia, and it seems like she is never the one to make that purchase. We hear Salah say, this is the one I get all the time, it is high quality. I've mentioned before how I believe that Salah is on Foodie's payroll as a perhaps errand person, caretaker, call him what you will, but that he is the one who is responsible for her daily chores. So I think that the clips that we just watched might lend some credence to that theory. When Foodie Beauty was at the villa, those boxes were not cleaned or scooped. Instead, what she would do is she would take fresh litter and dump it on top of that which had already been used. And as a result, we know, and Foodie Beauty has even said this recently, that BBJ would go to the bathroom throughout the villa. Of course, Foodie Beauty would like us to believe that this was due to old age and illness, but we know that it was a matter of cleanliness. Is the same thing happening here? Was not having basic supplies that any cat would need just a matter of bad timing and having run out, or does it speak to a larger issue of overall neglect of Julia's box, and then Julia is using the entire apartment as her box? Given the fact that Julia is having issues with her backside to the point where things are getting stuck on her fur and she needed to have her hind quarters shaved, it sounds like history is in fact repeating itself. And perhaps the fact that Julia's story is now starting to look like BBJ's, maybe that fueled Foodie Beauty as well. Maybe Julia reminds her of BBJ, and therefore that contributed to this whole catnapping as well. Foodie Beauty wanted to be perceived as a rescuer of a cat in dire need and hoped to profit from it in the process. At the end of the day, Foodie Beauty committed a crime and is now facing well-deserved consequences. So I will end here. Let me know your thoughts on all of this. Thank you so much for listening, and until the next time.